Welcome back. So we know what language models are now, and in this video we are looking at what datasets were used to train Google BART. So basically the idea here is let's talk through the highlights, then we are going to look at more details. So details of websites used to train uh, Google BART or Lambda are looks like a confidential data for now. So 50% of training data came from public forums. Programming Q&A website tutorials were used for training. And one more thing we need to understand is, so Google BART is based on a Lambda language model trained on datasets based on internet content, and one such dataset is infinity set, of which very little is known about where the data comes from. So the 2022 research paper, which I'm just sharing it here, which will be added as an attachment in the link to this below this video. You can go read through that in detail when you find time. So the idea here is 12.5% comes from publicly crawled dataset, and another 12.5% comes from Wikipedia. And coming to this, what is infinity dataset? So infini set dataset. So Google BART is based on language model, which is an acronym for language model for dialogue applications, was trained on a dataset called InfiSet dataset. It is a blend of internet content that was deliberately chosen to enhance the model to engage in a dialogue. So if you want to go through that in the paper, I'll just show you the paragraph for this. So if you go to this page here and do Control F, search here. So yeah, so you see this, the composition was chosen to achieve a more robust performance of dialogue tasks while still keeping the ability to perform tasks like code generation as a future work. So we can choose how this composition may affect the quality of some of other NLP tasks performed by the model. So I'm just giving references to the dataset as and when I encounter it. I'm not going through the paper in detail. You have to read through that paper in detail if you want to know more. So the research paper makes reference to dialogue and dialogues, which is the spelling of the words and in the context within the realm of computer science. And in total for Lambda, the pre-trained on 1.56 trillion words for public dialogue data and Webtext. And the data set is compared to the following mix. The 12.5% comes from C4 based data. The other one comes from English like Wikipedia. 12.5% comes from programming Q&A website tutorials and others. 6.5% comes from English. 6.25% comes from non-English, and 50% from public forums. So the first two parts of Infi dataset is comprised of data that is known. So the C4 dataset, which will be explored shortly, is specifically the filtered version of common crawl dataset. So if you read about Google BART's rival large language model OpenAI, they have also used common crawl dataset. This is available for anyone. Even if you want to build a large language model tomorrow, this dataset is available to you. Only 25% of data comes from name source, which is C4 and Wikipedia. The bulk of the Infi dataset, 75%, are data scraped from the internet. Does not say how the data was obtained from the websites, what website it was obtained from, and the criteria for scraping the data is not mentioned. Only uses generalized description like non-English web words. So the word murky means when something is not explained and is mostly concealed. So murky is the best English word describing 75% of the data that Google has used for training Lambda. There are some clues that may give us some general hint on what sites were obtained, but we can't know for certain if that's the dataset that was used. Coming to C4, it is a dataset developed by Google in 2020. C4 stands for Colossal Clean Crawled Corpus. So this dataset is based on Common Crawl data, which is an open source data source. So about Common Crawl. Common Crawl is a registered non-profit organization that crawls the internet on a monthly basis to create free dataset anyone can use. He is currently run by people who have worked at Wikipedia Foundation and a bunch of former Googlers. So C4 is developed from Common Crawl. The raw Common Crawl data is cleaned by removing things like thin content, obscene words, navigational menus, deduplication in order to limit the dataset to main content. The main point of filtering. So the main point of filtering is to remove unnecessary data and retain the examples of natural English. So having said that, so I'm also going back to this paper here to show you that. So if you search for this word in the paper, okay, if you do Control F and Control V, okay, it's not in this paper. So yeah, so this is what researchers in Common Crawl wrote about. So to assemble our base data set, we downloaded the web extracted from April 2019 and applied a foremost filtering. This produces a collection of data that is not only of the magnitude larger than most data sets used for pre-training, but also comprise of reasonably clean natural English. We dub this dataset as C4 and release it part of TensorFlow datasets. So there is another paper which Google has published, which is documenting the large corpus paper. I'm just sharing that. I will also attach this paper. So this talks about how the C4 dataset is actually cleaned by Google and released as a TensorFlow dataset. So when you have time, you can read this too. We won't be covering it in this course. So interestingly, the second research paper discovered anomalies in original C4 dataset, which resulted in removal of web pages that were Hispanic and African American aligned. Hispanic aligned web pages were removed by the blocklist filter swear words at the rate of 32% of the pages. African American pages were removed at the rate of 42%. Presumably, those shortcomings have been addressed. Another finding was 51.3% of C4 dataset consisting of web pages that were hosted in United States. So lastly, 2021 analysis of original acknowledges the data represents only a fraction of internet dataset. And the next one is, these are the 25 datasets which are sorted by the number of tokens that was used by C4. This includes patent.google, Wikipedia, New York Times, Latin Times, Guardian, Journals, Forbes, Huffington Post, patents.com, Script, Washington Post, Fool.com, frontiersin.org, Business Insider, and couple of other more sites, Kickstarter. So there are many other sites that were used to train this. And so the next one is the concept of massive webs. So what could be the dialogues data from the public forums? So 50% of training data comes from data from the public forums. That's all Google Lambda research paper says about this training data set. If one were to guess, Reddit and other communities like Stack Overflow or Safe Bets. Reddit has also been mentioned as a data source by OpenAI, which is the Google's rival LLM. So it's most likely Google might have also used it. So Google also published details of another dataset of public dialogue sites a month before publication of Lambda, which is the massive web dataset, which contains the public sites in the dialogue. And a good example of what Google chose for language model that focused on dialogue, Massive Web was created by DeepMind, which is also another company owned by Google, and they use a language model called Gophers. So this is the paper on Gophers, and you can read through what Gophers is. So this is about the DeepMind. This is beyond the scope of this. I just wanted to mention this because the data sets, there are some overlap for different models. So just wanted to mention this. If this is too confusing, you can ignore this. For this, so massive data sets uses dialogues, web sources that go beyond Reddit in order to avoid bias towards creating Reddit influence sites. So if you go through the next one, these were the potential websites used in massive web: Reddit, Quora, Facebook, YouTube, Medium, and Stack Overflow. Again, this isn't suggesting the Lambda was trained on the above sites. It is likely Google might have used some of these data sets, or they might have used another forum, like probably Google Pages or some other forums which are internally from Google. So that is not very clear at the moment. So I don't have exact information on that. So the remaining 37.5 data set comes from Q&A forums, Wikipedia, English grammar, and non-English grammar. And Google does not specify the sites used in the programming Q&A sites that make up the 12.5% of the data sets. And one more concern that people have on Google's transparency is some of the sites like Stack Overflow and Quora may be redundant if Google answers all the questions. So these are some of the concerns they also have. Like any new model or any new AI that comes up, there's always concern about the existing system because people are resistant to change. So that's all I wanted to cover for now. I hope you liked it. Check the links for the papers we discussed in this. I hope this helps. Thank you for joining.